So, as we turn to the current situation section of your proposal, I thought I would talk a little bit about the parts of that proposal, the organization of it, the purpose of it, and reiterate some things that Johnson Sheehan said in the book, and maybe add some different emphases to that. As Johnson Sheehan suggests, one way to think about the current situation section is simply as a description of the problem faced by the proposal writer and/or the funding agency. To think about a problem in terms of what caused the problem is one way to go about it. You can also look at a problem in terms of the effects it has, either for the proposal writer or for the granting agency. Now, as Johnson Sheehan suggests, looking at a problem in terms of its cause or its effect is a strategic decision. Whether you look at it one way or the other is going to depend a lot on the context of your proposal and the needs of the granting agency. What's the purpose of the current situation section? Don't the readers of the grant already know the current situation? Isn't that why the RFP exists? Well, yes and no. Sometimes a funding agency or a company that issues an RFP may think it understands the problem, but you can provide some perspective by illustrating the problem in another way. This is the example of the office space problem that Johnson Sheehan goes into at some length. Whether or not you are trying to enlighten your readers in any real sense, you are certainly trying to build your credibility. Your description of the current situation tells your readers whether you understand it or not, whether you really have a grasp on what the problem is. And readers are rarely likely to give money to a grant applicant who doesn't understand the problem. That person is unlikely to come up with a credible solution. A fundamental way to think about this is to think that the current situation section has a dual purpose, a dual audience. One of its goals is to help the reader understand things, and the other goal is to help the reader understand you and how well you understand the situation. Your credibility is being built with every sentence of the current situation section. You should approach the research with this dual purpose in mind. On the one hand, you should know your audience, research their mission, values, purpose, and so forth, and research how they understand the problem. If you can helpfully push them to understand the problem in a way that's more compatible with you, and do that without setting off any alarm bells, then you should do that. And from that perspective, your purpose really is to educate the audience. Another way to think about research, in addition to all of the things that Johnson Sheehan says about different kinds of sources, is that the research that you undertake to describe the current situation should prompt you to think imaginatively about the problem. Frame it in as many different ways as possible, at least in the drafting process, so that you have a description of the situation that sort of grabs the reader, lets them know that you understand the situation authoritatively. And that may educate the reader in a real sense about the subject, but it is certainly likely to educate them about you as a researcher, thinker, and proposal writer. How should you organize the current situation section? Here, I think Johnson Sheehan is a little bit disappointing. He doesn't really think about organization very much, except in terms of filling in some slots. There's something kind of helpful about that, but I think it could be done a little bit more carefully. If you think past his rather stale 5-paragraph theme sort of approach, really the organization of the current situation section can be thought of in this way. First, you make a point. You point out something strongly, prominently, and in the beginning of the section. This may sound obvious, but boy, I've read a lot of proposals that don't do that, that simply think that the point is obvious or take it for granted that the reader thinks about the current situation in the same way that the writer does. Trust me, they don't. Everything else that you say in the current situation section, the quote-unquote body of the current situation section, whether you describe that in terms of causes or in terms of effects, and Johnson Sheehan is not bad about the reasons for choosing different kinds of organizations, I suppose. Really, everything else needs to serve that main point. If it doesn't serve the main point, then it's extraneous. Get rid of it. End the current situation section by repeating the point. Why do that? Why is it important to repeat the point? When you were learning to write the essay and you came to that 5-paragraph theme in grammar school, they told you to repeat the point. It's a silly thing to learn or to take as a rule of writing for some kinds of writing. For essay writing, for literary writing, you don't necessarily have to repeat the point. But frankly, in proposal writing, you do. Because readers of proposal writing, readers of proposals are under the gun. They don't have a lot of time. They are likely to skim your writing as much as read it. And so when you repeat the point, you favor the skimmer.